What happens when a landlord uses his power to force out a struggling black family, only to discover that their quiet resilience hides a surprising secret that will change everything? The Parker family lived in an old apartment that creaked with every step and carried the scars of years without proper care. James, a hardworking father, often spent his evenings fixing leaky faucets and patching walls while his wife, Mia, balanced her part-time job and taking care of their teenage daughter, Nia. Despite their efforts to make it a home, the building seemed determined to resist, with its peeling paint and drafty windows serving as daily reminders of neglect. Their landlord, Mr. Carlton, was a man of wealth but little empathy. He owned the building along with several others in the city, each more dilapidated than the last. Carlton took pride in his status but treated his tenants, especially the black ones, with barely disguised contempt. He rarely responded to complaints, and when he did, his solutions were quick fixes, often leaving the tenants worse off. The Parkers, like many others, bore the brunt of Carlton's prejudice. He saw them as undeserving, people he believed brought down the value of his property. His disdain was palpable, from the way he avoided eye contact during inspections to the unnecessary fines he imposed for imagined violations. Yet the Parkers persisted, holding on to their dignity and the hope of a better future. For James, Mia, and Nia, the apartment was more than four walls. It was a stepping stone. But Carlton, with his disdainful smirks and constant pressure to evict tenants he deemed undesirable, had other plans. The tension in the building simmered like an untended fire, waiting for a spark. And soon that spark would ignite, setting events in motion that no one, not even Carlton, could predict. The knock at the door was loud and deliberate, echoing through the small apartment. James opened it to find Mr. Carlton standing there, flanked by two maintenance workers with clipboards in hand. Carlton's presence always carried an air of smug authority, and today was no different. He handed James a folded piece of paper with a satisfied smirk. "What's this?" James asked, unfolding the document. "An eviction notice," Carlton replied, his voice dripping with mock concern. "It's come to my attention that you violated several terms of your lease agreement." James scanned the paper, his brow furrowing. "This is ridiculous. We've done nothing wrong." Carlton shrugged, feigning indifference. "Late payments, unauthorized modifications to the unit, and complaints from other tenants. It's all there. You have 30 days to vacate." Mia appeared behind James, her expression one of disbelief. "Late payments? We've always paid on time. And what modifications? Fixing the things you refuse to repair?" Carlton's smirk widened. "Take it up with the courts if you'd like, but I doubt you'll find much sympathy there." Nia, who had been quietly observing from the living room, stepped forward. "Why are you really doing this? Is it because we're black?" Carlton's eyes flicked toward her, his smile fading briefly before returning. "I don't need to explain myself to you," he said coldly. "I'm just enforcing the rules." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving the Parkers standing in stunned silence. The weight of the notice settled over them like a heavy cloud. James crumpled the paper in his fist, his face set with determination. "We're not going anywhere," he said firmly. "He's not going to get away with this." Mia nodded, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "We'll fight this, together." That evening, the Parkers sat at their small dining table, strategizing their next steps. James reached out to a community lawyer known for taking on cases of tenant discrimination, while Nia started documenting their experience online. "If he wants a fight," James said, "he'll get one." Unbeknownst to Carlton, the family he tried to dismiss so easily was about to take the first step in a battle that would change everything. The following days were a whirlwind of activity for the Parkers. Determined to fight back, James and Mia met with Mr. Willis, a seasoned community lawyer known for standing up to unscrupulous landlords. In his cluttered office, they laid out their situation, showing Willis the eviction notice and recounting Carlton's history of harassment. Willis frowned as he skimmed the document. "This isn't the first time I've heard about Carlton. He's been pulling this stunt with tenants for years, especially black families. He counts on people not knowing their rights." "So what can we do?" James asked. Willis leaned forward. "We start by documenting everything: dates, times, interactions, any proof of his negligence or discrimination. Then we dig into his records. If he's violated housing laws, we'll have a strong case. Meanwhile, Naya took a different approach. Armed with her smartphone and a sharp sense of justice, she began sharing their story on social media. Her post detailed the dilapidated conditions of the building, the eviction notice, and Carlton's dismissive attitude. She included pictures of peeling paint, broken windows, and the notice itself, tagging local activists and housing rights organizations. Her post quickly gained traction. Comments poured in from people who had experienced similar situations with landlords like Carlton. Others offered words of encouragement, pledging to share the story. Within a week, the hashtag #Fight for Fair Housing was trending in their community. Carlton, meanwhile, was doubling down on his efforts to make the Parkers' lives miserable. Maintenance requests were ignored entirely, and workers sent to inspect the building seemed more intent on harassing tenants than addressing repairs. One day, the building's water supply was mysteriously shut off for hours, forcing residents to band together to get by. The tension in the building was palpable. Some tenants, fearing retaliation, avoided speaking out, but others began rallying behind the Parkers. One elderly neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, confided in Mia. "He tried to evict me last year, claimed I wasn't keeping my unit clean, but I couldn't fight him alone. That's why we have to stand together," Mia said, her resolve hardening. In the midst of the chaos, a surprising twist emerged. Carlton began boasting about an upcoming deal to sell the building. "Finally getting rid of that place," he told one of his cronies. "It's been a headache for too long." The Parkers, hearing this through a neighbor, were stunned. "If he sells the building, we could lose everything," James said. "We need to figure out who's buying it." Willis, ever resourceful, began digging into public records and business filings. What they found shocked them. The buyer was listed as an anonymous entity, but the purchase price was suspiciously high for such a rundown property. "Whoever it is," Willis mused, "they've got deep pockets and a vested interest in this building." As the mystery deepened, Nia's social media campaign attracted the attention of a local nonprofit dedicated to housing justice. They reached out, offering to help fund a legal case against Carlton. More importantly, they hinted at another possibility, a way to secure the building and ensure it remained affordable for its tenants. The Parkers were intrigued but cautious. "What's the catch?" James asked during a late-night meeting with the nonprofit's representatives. "No catch," one of the reps said. "Just a chance to turn this into something bigger than one family's fight. If we work together, we could change this building and the community." The idea began to take shape. The Parkers, with the nonprofit's backing, could become part of a coalition to buy the building themselves. It would be a long shot, requiring coordination with activists and investors, but it was a chance to take control of their fate. Carlton, oblivious to the growing storm, continued to gloat. At a building meeting, he announced, "I've found a buyer who'll turn this dump into something respectable. You'll thank me when I'm gone." The tenants exchanged wary glances, unsure of what the future held, but James, standing tall in the corner, simply smiled. He had a plan, and it was about to unfold. The day Carlton had been boasting about finally arrived. The tenants were summoned to a meeting in the building's small, dimly lit lobby, where Carlton stood with his trademark smug expression. Behind him, a few of his workers lingered, ready to assist with whatever schemes he had planned. He held a folder in his hand, waving it dramatically. "Ladies and gentlemen," Carlton began, his voice oozing with false cheer, "I'm pleased to announce that the building has officially been sold. I'll be out of your hair soon enough, and the new owners will take over within the month. As for some of you," his gaze landed on the Parkers, "I'd recommend starting your packing now." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Carlton continued. "The buyers are investors who plan to renovate this place and bring it up to modern standards. Naturally, that means some of you may not fit their vision for the future. But hey, that's progress." James, standing with Mia and Nia near the back, exchanged a knowing glance with his wife. Nia's expression was calm, but there was a flicker of excitement in her eyes. They had been waiting for this moment. One of Carlton's workers handed him a clipboard, and he gestured toward the door. "In fact, the new owner's representative is here now. Why don't we give them a warm welcome?" The crowd turned as the door opened. Two sharply dressed individuals entered, their confident strides commanding attention. Carlton's smirk faltered as James and Mia stepped forward. flanked by representatives from the nonprofit. Carlton's eyes darted between them and the crowd, confusion quickly giving way to disbelief. "What is this?" Carlton demanded, his voice rising. "You're the new owner?" Mia met his gaze with a calm smile. "That's right, Mr. Carlton. Thanks to a coalition of community investors and the nonprofit, we've purchased the building." Gasps and cheers erupted from the tenants, their disbelief quickly transforming into joy. Carlton, however, looked as though the ground had shifted beneath his feet. "This is a joke," he muttered, shaking his head. "You can't afford this place." James stepped forward, his tone steady. "With the support of people who believe in fair housing, we were able to make this happen. You tried to force us out, Carlton, but instead, you handed us the opportunity to fight back." Carlton's face turned a deep shade of red. "This can't be legal. I'll fight this." "It's already done," said one of the nonprofit representatives, holding up a signed document. "We've completed the transaction, and the building is officially under new ownership. You'll need to vacate your office within 30 days. Carlton stumbled back, his bravado crumbling. For years, he had wielded unchecked power over the tenants, using fear and manipulation to keep them in line. Now, standing before the people he had underestimated, he found himself powerless. The tenants began to cheer louder, some embracing one another while others clapped for the Parkers. Nia held up her phone, capturing the moment for her growing online audience. "The fight isn't just about us," she said, her voice clear and proud. "It's about standing up for what's right." Carlton's workers awkwardly shuffled out of the room, leaving their boss to face the crowd alone. He opened his mouth to speak but found no words. Defeated, he turned and walked out of the building, his steps heavy with humiliation. As Carlton disappeared down the street, James addressed the crowd. "This is your building now, too. We'll make the repairs, fix what's broken, and create a space where everyone feels safe and respected. But we can't do it alone. Together, we can make this place a true home." The applause was deafening. For the first time in years, the tenants felt a sense of hope, a belief that change was possible. The Parkers had not only reclaimed their home, but had also shown the power of resilience and unity in the face of injustice. The crowd slowly began to disperse, but the energy of the moment lingered in the air. Tenants who had lived in fear of eviction or neglect for years finally felt a glimmer of hope. James and Mia stood near the front of the lobby, shaking hands and exchanging heartfelt words with their neighbors. "Thank you for fighting for all of us," said Mrs. Jenkins, her eyes glistening with tears. "I thought I'd have to leave the only home I've ever known." Mia squeezed her hand gently. "You don't have to worry anymore. We're here for each other now." Meanwhile, Nia continued documenting the aftermath, interviewing tenants and sharing updates with her growing online audience. The video of Carlton's downfall had already started gaining traction, with comments pouring in praising the family's resilience and the community's victory. Nia felt a swell of pride, but also a sense of responsibility. This was just the beginning. As night fell, the Parkers gathered around their dining table, reflecting on the day's events. The reality of their new role as building owners was sinking in, and with it, the challenges ahead. "We've won the battle," James said, his voice steady. "But now the real work begins." Over the next few weeks, the Parkers, along with the nonprofit and local activists, began making changes to the building. Repairs that had been neglected for years were finally addressed. Leaky pipes, broken windows, and faulty wiring were all fixed. The tenants, inspired by the Parkers' leadership, volunteered their time to help clean and beautify the building. Nia organized a community meeting to discuss future plans for the property. The tenants filled the lobby, excited to have a say in their living conditions for the first time. "This building isn't just where we live," Nia said, addressing the crowd. "It's a symbol of what we can achieve when we stand together." The meeting resulted in the creation of a tenant committee, with representatives from each floor tasked with voicing concerns and suggesting improvements. It was a small step, but it marked a significant shift in the building's dynamic. The residents were no longer powerless. They were part of the decision-making process. Carlton, meanwhile, became a pariah in the community. Word of his actions spread quickly, fueled by Nia's social media campaign. Former tenants began coming forward with their own stories of discrimination and neglect, painting a damning picture of his years as a landlord. His once pristine reputation was in tatters, and he was forced to sell off his remaining properties to cover mounting legal fees. Despite their victory, the Parkers remained humble. They knew that change didn't happen overnight and that their work was far from finished. James and Mia worked tirelessly to balance their new responsibilities with their jobs, while Nia continued to use her platform to advocate for fair housing across the city. One evening, as James walked through the building, inspecting the progress, he noticed Mrs. Jenkins tending to a small flower garden she had planted outside the entrance. "This place is starting to feel like home again," she said with a smile. "Thanks to you and your family." James smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "It's thanks to all of us. We did this together." The following weekend, the Parkers hosted a small celebration for the tenants in the newly repaired courtyard. Laughter and music filled the air as neighbors shared food and stories, the sense of community stronger than ever. Nia stood near the edge of the gathering, capturing moments for her online followers. "Today isn't just about fixing a building," she said in a live video. "It's about showing what can happen when we stand up for what's right. This is proof that change is possible." The tenants cheered as James raised a toast to their collective efforts. "To new beginnings," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "May we continue to build something better, together." The morning sunlight filtered through the freshly cleaned windows of the apartment building, casting a warm glow on the new community bulletin board in the lobby. It was covered with colorful notes, requests for help, offers of assistance, and announcements of upcoming events. The board was just one of many small changes that signaled a new era for the tenants of Carlton Apartments, now renamed Parker Place. James stood near the entrance, watching as tenants came and went, greeting one another with smiles and waves. The transformation was undeniable. Where once there had been tension and fear, there was now a sense of unity and pride. He felt a deep satisfaction knowing their family had played a part in creating this. Upstairs, Mia and Nia were organizing a room that had been converted into a shared community space. The walls were lined with bookshelves filled with donated books, and the center was arranged with tables and chairs for meetings and gatherings. Nia placed a sign on the door. "Community room, all are welcome." "This is what I hoped for," Mia said, her voice soft but full of pride. "A place where everyone feels like they belong." Nia nodded, her camera in hand as she prepared to share another update with her followers. "It's just the beginning," she said, capturing a shot of the vibrant space. "We've proven what's possible, and now it's time to keep pushing for change." That evening, the family gathered on the building's rooftop overlooking the city. It was their first quiet moment in weeks, and the weight of their accomplishment finally began to sink in. "We did it," James said, his voice filled with quiet pride. "Not just for us, but for everyone here." Mia smiled, leaning against him. "And this is only the start. There's so much more we can do." Nia, looking out at the city lights, spoke with conviction. "If we can do this here, we can inspire others to fight back too." The story ended with the Parkers standing together, united in purpose and hope. They had turned a place of struggle into a symbol of strength, proving that resilience and community could overcome even the greatest injustices. As the sun rose over the freshly painted walls of what was once Carlton Apartments, now proudly renamed Parker Place, the transformation was undeniable. The building that had once symbolized neglect and despair now radiated hope and renewal. Every repaired window and vibrant wall was a testament to the strength and resilience of the people who called it home. James stood at the entrance, watching as tenants passed by with newfound ease. For years, he had carried the weight of ensuring his family's safety and dignity amidst the shadow of injustice. Today, that weight felt lighter, replaced by pride. Parker Place was no longer a battlefield. It was a sanctuary built on unity and courage. Mia walked into the newly established community room, her heart swelling with pride as she adjusted a bookshelf. The room, now alive with color and warmth, was a dream they had never dared to imagine during their darkest days. A sign near the door read, "Community room, all are welcome." Mia smiled, her fingers tracing the words. "This is what home should feel like," she whispered to herself. Nia, standing nearby with her phone in hand, was typing her latest post. Her efforts to document their fight had sparked a citywide conversation about tenant rights and housing justice. Today, she wrote, "Parker Place isn't just a building, It's proof that communities can rise above oppression. Together, we've shown what's possible when hope meets action. As the morning progressed, tenants gathered in the courtyard for a celebration organized by the Parkers. Music, laughter, and the sound of children playing filled the air. For the first time in years, the atmosphere was one of unfiltered joy and camaraderie. Neighbors shared food and stories, their bonds growing stronger with every moment. James raised a toast, his voice steady but full of emotion. To everyone here, thank you. This building is more than a home. It's a promise that when we stand together, no one can take away our dignity. We've built something beautiful here, and this is just the beginning. The applause was overwhelming. For the tenants, this wasn't just a celebration of a building. It was a reclaiming of their lives. For the Parkers, it was the culmination of a fight that had once seemed impossible to win. Carlton's name was now a whisper, a cautionary tale of greed undone by justice. His attempts to force the Parkers out had only strengthened their resolve. His absence was barely noticed, overshadowed by the vibrant community that had risen in his place. As the evening settled in, the Parkers found themselves on the rooftop, gazing at the city's twinkling lights. "We've come so far," James said softly, "but there's still so much to do." Mia leaned into him, her voice steady with determination. "And we'll face it together." Nia, her camera capturing the moment, smiled. "This isn't just our story. It's for everyone who needs to know they can fight back. Change is hard, but it's possible." Parker Place now stood as a beacon, a testament to what can happen when ordinary people refuse to back down. It wasn't just a building anymore. It was a legacy of resilience, unity, and the unwavering belief that even in the face of injustice, hope can triumph.